Hi, John Fitzgerald, and welcome to another edition of Team Custodian. Lots of noise going on. Bubbles, 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 all that sort of thing. Forget it. The only area that could be bubbling is Sydney and parts of high end of Melbourne, but otherwise we've got a very, very normal market, and even the Prime Minister said we actually want some price growth. When you get bubbles, when you get a market actually running and we want it to run, you get a lot of noise. And they always bring up negative gearing, and they always bring up the banks lending and the banks over lending. I don't put any stock in them tinkering with negative gearing. And the main reason is consistently both sides of the House have said no, we're not going to touch it. And even the major review into tax done by the Henry report basically said no, we need to keep negative gearing. And the reason is because they axed it in 1985 till 1987. For 2 years, they had to reintroduce it because of the massive supply needed in public housing. Because the truth is, if investors don't provide rental accommodation, who is going to? And that's really the key. One of the reasons we have negative gearing. And I don't think people realise that. 1 in 3 Australians rents. And today particularly it's important because we have nearly 5,000 migrants a week coming into the country. They've got to live somewhere. So no, negative gearing's here to stay. However, APRA, the prudential authority that controls banks, they are making noises about banks lending, particularly to investors. And that's something that, yes, does get my attention. In New Zealand, they reduced their LVRs to 80%. That could happen here. Do I think it will? No, but it could happen. And there's certainly enough noise about it. And the APRA said we don't want the banks to increase their loan books to investors by more than 10%. They pretty much all have. Exceeded that, in fact. So it's not going to plan. The latest was the bank said we'll increase our rates by 0.1% to investors. That should calm things down. That's going to do nothing. So you could possibly expect in the next 6 months or sometime into 2016 that APRA do bring in, no, we want to limit investment loans to 80%. I don't see that as a major bad thing, but it does affect you as a custodian because it will reduce your LVR. What's the answer? We'll go out and buy now. And that's what I'm doing. I'm buying as much property as I possibly can now. I'm not overly concerned about APRA, but I do think, okay, if it comes in, it will affect my loan value ratio. So that's just my view on the noise that's going around. But at the end of the day, it's just noise. The market's doing pretty much what it normally always does. We're going through a cycle, and when there's a cycle, when there's an upswing, everybody talks about property. There's programs every night on TV about property, 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 property. And what I say, great, bring it on. We've got to have more of it. Thanks for listening to me.